Welcome everyone to our latest episode of the Ireland Women's Football Book Club, and I'm delighted to say that Ciara Grant is with me here, and we are going to be looking at Football She Wrote, an absolutely brilliant book of football stories, and they're just so different. It's everything from people's fan experience to their working experience to how they fell in love with the game and their relationship with the game, and even how it changed their lives. So lots of different stories, really brilliant stories. And I think I'll probably speak for both of us when I say, Ciara, I learned an awful lot about the game and people's relationships with it and how much football means to people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And even I think the opening kind of stories about, how football was banned in England during, kind of the post World War era, when the men kind of returned home and realized the women were taking all the thunder. And just even for me to read then, like medical doctors signing off that it was unsafe for women to play is just crazy. But then I just love the whole kind of underdog, kind of illegal like growth that was happening then around kind of the UK, especially Scotland, England, and then just read about that first ever international game between the two of them. And just even the jerseys, like somebody's mum was signing or sewing on all the numbers and everything like that. But it's just great, and sometimes you kind of forget how far women's football and women's sport in general has come. So it's very cool reading those stories.
Yeah, it is really cool, but I think it's really important as well because, like, growing up, like, I don't think girls and women were probably aware the significance of that ban and how hard that the different women had to fight to try and get the game going again. And you mentioned the fact that they got medical doctors. When I say they, I mean men got medical doctors to sign on to say that we shouldn't be playing the game, that it's damaging to us and that it might affect our reproduction and all this. But the reality was that they didn't want us taking something that they felt that they owned, and that is the black and white of it. And so many women had to fight so hard to get the game back going again, and it was like 50 years until the 1970s. So even Gabby Logan at the start, she writes the foreword saying that she didn't know that women could play football or were playing football or little girls were playing football, let alone be able to write about football, which for me was just amazing to hear from so many different writers and journalists. And the whole thing was just really empowering, I found.
Yeah, empowering is a great word, because every story so far I've read in it, it's just been literally about that kind of being, the outsider, being the female, being told no, and then just not taking that and pushing boundaries. And I just think it's great. And then not only that, kind of taken away from just even the kind of the female onus of football, the inspiration and the kind of life-changing events it can have for people too, like her name, sorry, it's just escaped me, who's now the head of the diversity of FIFA and equality, that she was struck with a terrible ailment in her 30s, depths of depression, 2 years in the house, and then wanted to take a football match, the atmosphere, and just brings her back to life and spurs and the next 20 years of her life is all football. And it's class. But there's something electric about an atmosphere in a stadium. Like last night, even 3,000 people at our cup final, flares going off. It just adds a whole other element, and you just see it in the kids' faces too. They're just in awe. They're like, "What? Like, this is just brilliant."
I also took away from it the fact that we're all the same, men, women, boys, girls. When you read the stories and the experiences, like, we all feel the same things. We all love the same things about the game. We have the same experiences. We have the same love for it. Like, your gender doesn't matter when it comes to the game. And, women are entitled to be fans of male football clubs. Men are entitled to be the women's football clubs. The outcome is the exact same. It's a game. It's winning and losing. It's the feelings. It's the fans. And that came across to me in so many of the stories as well, just how different people ended up supporting clubs and falling in love with football. And I think it's Joyce Cook was the woman that you mentioned there that had the disability. Just to even get a sense of purpose in life because of sport is pretty amazing. So there was just so many brilliant stories. And out of all of them, which was your standout one?
To be honest, I think I didn't think it would have been, but the story of the friendship between kind of a young female and this elderly man, and they became season ticket holders, and it was just even the way it was worded, it was so beautiful. It was just like, you sign up for a season ticket, you get placed in the stadium beside, you don't know who, but if there's 5 or 6 people now potentially that are going to be, your kind of partners in crime for all the home games over the next season, potentially the next 10 seasons. And I just think that's so unique in football and sport in general, that you befriend these people that you might never meet outside of the sport environment might have nothing in common, bar sport, bar your team, bar whatever you're into in that sport environment, and then suddenly it leads to a lifelong friendship that, you know, is just beautiful. Between, I think there was 35 years between the two of them, and like things like that just don't happen often, and it just gave me a lot of kind of appreciation maybe off the pitch for how much sport can bring to people as well. So I just really like that story.
Yeah, for me, I loved all the journalism elements because there was so many about them. And I guess, like, when you think about it, women covering football, it's still not the norm. It's definitely evolved quite a lot over the last couple of decades, but it's still something that's going to grow. But to hear the stories and just to kind of get an understanding of what people had to go through to follow their dreams and to become writers and to become broadcasters, and, you know, hearing from people like Jackie Oatley, and even just bringing in the difficulties that she's had as a mother trying to juggle everything. Like, I've just found there to be so many relatable things. Isabella Tifa Barker speaking about the importance of male allies, and that's something that I have found to be so important. And I always credit the editor of the Sunday Independent, John Green, for giving me a chance and just investing his time so that I could develop. And you know, you're kind of seeing that reflected across a lot of these stories as well. So just like the journalism for me and how that's developed, and the role that these women are now playing as well in shaping the narrative around football, I found it really heartening, I have to say.
And even it's like the crack some of these women have had too on those journeys in journalism. Yeah. Two sisters who had no idea, but, you know, kind of were African heritage. We're like, we want to follow the African teams, and just decided to approach, you know, I think it was an African Nations kind of BBC channel. Can they go cover the women's games? And the next thing they know, they're in China and they're trying to go from one end to the next, and they haven't clue what they're doing. They haven't slept in hours, but they're having fun. And, you know, I think they got massive feedback from that, and now have also paved their lives in journalism and in sport. And yeah, no, there's just some great stories. And I just this morning I was finishing off one about the team of mothers, and it was kind of, I think, a little bit of a tipsy idea in a local pub that turned into a real idea. And I think the WhatsApp group just blew up to about 55 members, and I think there's 2 or 3 of them like rummaging around old garages and stuff, trying to find bibs, balls, cones, anything. And just, you know, even she said the first day there was women there who'd never kicked a ball in their life, but, and like, it kind of reminds me of, you know, the Gaelic for Mothers as well initiative. Like, some of the videos that go up of that are just brilliant. And, you know, even St. in Donegal is my local club, and they have it as well. And I think the turnout is excellent. People bring their own kids and stuff as well, and just getting people back into sport, because again, trying to pave away from the elite competitive and just fun. Everyone can play. It doesn't have to be elite only. And I think once we can get that into people's heads, it just, you know, sport can bring so much joy to everyone.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Actually, just last Saturday I joined one of those teams, just rode in the local club, and like rambled up by myself, knew nobody, boots in my hand, and it's all just women who are a little bit older. They might have kids, some of them don't, but they just want to play. They want to have a little bit of fun. I gave a girl from Spain a lift to the bus stop. She saw it online, didn't want to be playing too competitively, but just wanted a bit of an outlet. And like, we're meeting up there and we're just chatting away, and nobody knows if there's a league that we can get into. And by the end of it all, between chatting and networking, we're going to be playing a challenge match in a few weeks. We're joining a league after Christmas. There's no pressure. We're talking about nights out, and it's just brilliant because it's connecting in a really healthy environment. And you just love to see more of it. And also, because the other reason I'd love to see more of it is because, you know, you want to see your girls out playing with their moms, and your boys out playing with their mom as well. And like, for me, that's a really important thing, that my little boys see me playing football, that they, you know, they see me coaching, that they come and watch some of my games, so that they understand that that football isn't a game for them, that's a game for everybody. So I do feel that it's almost like a sense of responsibility to get out there, to go and play with a team, and so that they can see me. But I understand as well that not everybody is able to play football. Like, I grew up playing football. So for other mothers to have an opportunity to learn to play football, so that they can go into the garden and play with their kids and kick the ball around and have the confidence to do that. And if they can learn in a safe environment, like these Mums United that we saw in the book, that's brilliant. And that's going to help the future generations as well. And, you know, when I was reading Katie Wyatt's chapter then as well, A Culture Still Crying Out for Change, that hit home to me even more, because her experiences of football were with her mom. So
Yeah.
like it was her mom that was bringing her to the games. It was her mom that she was, you know, sharing the wins with, and just getting the enjoyment of the game out of. And like that, I think is going to be a huge part of how we change as a society when it comes to the way women are treated in sport. If it's the mothers and the women, and they have their role to play as well, so that when we look at football, it's reflecting all of society, which is men, women, boys, and girls.
Yeah, and Marie, just even it's a little bit not off topic, but I just seen on Twitter yesterday or this morning, one of the doctors that I think he worked at St. James's Hospital, he just put up a tweet saying, my next door neighbour's daughter, who's 4, whose mother is a daughter, did not know that men could be doctors too, because she only knew of her mother as being a doctor and was a doctor for the first time, and it was a man. And like, I know obviously you don't want that either, but like
Yeah.
that in sport as well is just brilliant. And that's kind of what the picture you're painting there is, that if, you know, if these young children and just people in general are seeing both like males and females doing either or sport or whatever, then yeah, it doesn't have to be, you know, male categories, female categories. It's just, you know, we're all people, we all have different personalities. What you like, you like. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. And I think, as you said, that it's changing, but there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, big time. And all these little things like the Moms United, I think they're going to help so much. And look, the numbers of girls are brilliant. And even like books like this, and you know, we've done a few other books, like to be able to pick up a book and read about women's football and to read these stories, like the benefits I think are absolutely massive. It wasn't all positive though, and I found Katie Wyatt's chapter really difficult to read. Anyone who doesn't know Katie, she is an amazing writer for The Athletic. I follow her all the time. She suffers quite badly with depression, and she charges that through Twitter. I'd recommend anyone to follow her if they're watching this, just to get a bit of an insight into her life, because she does great things for women's football and for sport in general. And she doesn't shy away from the difficulties that come with suffering from depression. And I think it's great that people are brave enough to be able to talk about things like this. But she's had some really tough experiences. Just the reaction that she's got from different people when she's written about football, comments that she's received, and you know, they're quite devastating to read. And as well, I think, I don't know about you, Ciara, but I found like I've had experiences that she's had, but I tend to put them away in a box and be like, right, well, that's just the way it is. And look, these comments are going to be passed, and that's going to happen. And, you know, it's just life. And, you know, I sometimes feel like I shouldn't even talk about them because I'm giving them oxygen. But then I'm reading about Katie, and I'm like, when I read those things, it makes me feel like I shouldn't stand for behavior like that. And it's like, you know, I use the word empowering, but I did feel empowered by reading her chapter, because, you know, I was only at a game the other day, and somebody said something, you know, made a comment about me and the way I look. And, you know, I had my little boy with me, and somebody gave him a lift over a chair, and they're like, oh, you want me to give you a lift now too, you know, kind of. And I just kind of laughed about it, but it shouldn't be acceptable. And by accepting it, I think you're not helping to change the things for the next generation. Whereas somebody like Katie, who's actually brave enough to talk about the experiences and the comments and the negativity, she's actually making a difference, and she's been brave, and she will help change things. And her chapter is just phenomenal, I think.
Yeah, and it's absolutely like, and even sometimes when I reflect on situations, even maybe when I was a teenager or a younger adult as well, and things that happened, and just any kind of situations, and you kind of just laugh them off or do a little and then it's only afterwards you're like, jeepers, that was so inappropriate and so out of line. And sometimes it's both sides as well. So we just we're passive, we just let it happen. So it's a little bit of silent ignorance, you know, where we're just kind of like, you'd rather avoid any confrontations, you just let it happen. And then also there is an element of sometimes there's, because people are so used to doing things like making subtle comments, or even good girl really annoys me when people tell me I'm a good girl, both in a, you know, medical manner or just in daily life. Sometimes they like, you know, I'm very aware that sometimes people don't mean it, but also because it's so normalized in culture that we just, you know, it's just, yeah, I really get what you're saying, but it's a difficult one, because often it's after the moment's passed that you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whereas like, and then sometimes, as some of my friends would say, like, to be a diehard feminist is exhausting, because there's so many things in your like 24 hours in a day that happen that are good. But you know, but like I just think social media can be so powerful and so negative all at once, but I definitely think there is a very good movement online, and awareness is so much bigger now. and that things are changing. Like I see it even amongst my younger brother, or like, you know, younger kind of even teenagers. Sometimes they're having these more open discussions and open conversations about things that we would, God forbid, never even have spoken about when we were teenagers or had no awareness of. So I think we are moving towards, you know, yeah, slowly, slowly getting there, right?
It's just really hard to know what's the right way, what's the right thing to do, what's the right way to approach things. And look, as you said, when you're in the moment, it's, you know, you just want it to go away, for it to pass by so that you can get on with what you're doing, whether it's climbing over a chair or, you know, doing your job, or, you know, just trying to get to where you're going so that you can go to work or whatever it is. But I guess, look, the thing about Katie is that it made me think about things a little bit, and it made me wonder, am I doing the right thing when I'm being passive? And maybe the next time I might not, and I might call somebody out, and maybe that will help with education and change, because I am, like you as well, aware that sometimes people don't know any different and they think it's okay and it's acceptable because it has been acceptable for quite a long time. And I would hope that the generations like your younger brother, like that, they will be different, because they'll know that we don't accept that, and also they're not exposed to that kind of behavior, because it's almost a generational thing that it's happening with older people. And you would hope that, you know, it's phased out. But at the same time, you know, that the comments that Katie's getting about her articles and online, that they're not all older people.
There was a moment in Central recently, Marie, where I think the shop assistant was probably 16, and he called me love, and I was just like, when does a man, or when does a boy, like what age do you think it's okay to call a stranger love? And it's just, you know, it was so like effortless, just came off his tongue. I think he said it 3 times in our interaction, and I was just like, stop, you don't know me, like don't call me love. There's not a personal relationship here. But you know, and I know that's Dublin, and that's just like a word people say as well, but like, you know, this guy was probably 16, so, you know, way younger than me. And I just felt, it was just when I left, and I was kind of laughing, because I was like,
yeah,
it's crazy, like what, like, you know, I would never say that to a man, like, you know.
well, that's it. Yeah, like that's often the barometer as well. Or you know, just a lot of it is phrasing and language, and like stuff like that really does matter, I think, as well. Now, one that really got me, and one that I was actually nearly in tears reading, was the Molly Hudson one and Fran Kirby, the one about grief, because it was just so raw. And Molly makes the point in the chapter that grief isn't spoken about enough, and she couldn't be any more right, because it happens to everybody. It's in our lives. There's no getting away from it. You're going to lose people, and it's going to be really tough. And just the interconnection between herself and Fran, and the messages that were exchanged from Fran as well. I just thought it was the beauty of sport too, that, okay, it's, you know, as I think she said, football isn't always the most important thing. And then sometimes it is, you know. It was just a brilliant chapter for me.
It really was. And I even, like, I've read that article about Fran, or with Fran, in the Athletic as well. So, you know, I kind of had the background of what happened with Fran. And yeah, it's just connections like that. And I think, as like a common theme in the book as well, is just those, all the stories are so relatable, even though you, like, you know, obviously sometimes it can't be. But I think grief is you know, almost everybody has suffered grief at different stages in their life. And there are special days or special moments, and in football sometimes they coincide with big matches or big occasions. And I really liked the way she kind of, you know, was thinking of her own grief, but then was like, well, Fran Kirby, you know, and this is her day, her football match. And then as soon as she scored, she looks up to the sky, and she was just, it was very well written, and just that lovely connection. But also, yeah, that we do need to be more open about grief. And, you know, the both of them, I think, spent a phase of their lives trying to hide away or ignore it, and then it all came crumbling down. So yeah, and again, just kind of creating that more awareness. And I think Fran has been excellent about that too, in recent years, through social media, and through kind of, you know, even like that's a private message to somebody who might have met once. So it's a lovely touch as well.
And it as well kind of proves the point of the importance of role models, because for such a long time, as women and girls, we didn't have those role models. So we didn't have people that we could relate to. We didn't hear these stories. We didn't know that how we were feeling was how other people were feeling. What we were worried about was what other people were worried about, because there was no representation in the media. So the fact that we were actually reading these stories, and, you know, seeing Fran opening up, like the amount of people that she would have helped by doing that. And I don't mean just girls and women, I mean everybody. She would have helped so many people by talking about how difficult she found it. It just, again, shows the importance of it. And I don't think you could have had this book without having an Emma Hayes chapter in it, because she's just been such a formidable force when it comes to driving the women's game and changing things. And I just love reading about her background and her stories and just where she came from and what she's achieved.
Yeah, and I just even think that close bond she had with her family and her community, the flats, everything, and then her dad, you know, sounds like a piece of work maybe pushing her on, but like, you know, they seem to have just that lovely connection. Even her saying that she would just call her dad after a game or different things like that, and then for her to have the kind of awareness after she got fired to just go back to London, settle down, reevaluate things, maybe, you know, have a look at her life as a whole, and then was like, no, football is where I want to be, it's what I want to do. And like, I remember as Karen Carney put up a picture of Emma Hayes' preparation for one of the, was it one of the Euros or something, and I was just like, well, that is incredible. Like, and anything you read about her, any like words or interviews from the player, she is just top quality. And what I really liked was the really kind of importance that that story showed on how much Emma spends getting to know people and getting to know who they are. Even I think before she signed Sam Kerr, she, you know, was looking at her for about a year to make sure that she was the right person, you know, right time in her life, different things like that. And I think that's sometimes overlooked at kind of amateur level and different things like that. So I think when a manager has that insight to it's not just a player, it's a person, then, you know, that and a lot of hard work has got Emma to where she is today. But she's absolutely incredible, and you know, I'd love to meet her someday.
Yeah, same. And like often as well, like when somebody might be from somewhere that's a little bit disadvantaged, it's almost used as a stick to beat them with, or, you know, there's stigma attached to they came from here or they came from there and, you know, life was tough. But what really shines through in the chapter with Emma is just how she took the good from her situation and where she was from, and she was able to take all those bits and pieces that we might not see and bring them to her life in a really positive way, and just shine such a positive light on the upbringing that she had as well. And, you know, you'd have almost expected it to be negative, and it wasn't.
It wasn't. And I think, you know, then even, I think when you come from a bit more of a disadvantaged area too, like creativity, thinking outside the box, those things are just innate in you because you don't have things given to you all the time. You have to kind of work around things and, you know, create things for yourself, and that obviously is a massive trait in a managerial position, and even for, you know, inner city London to go to America, like I'm sure it was a massive culture shock. You know, I just loved when I can't remember what his name was, when he was saying that she came into a coaches meeting and he straight away was like, sorry, who are you? Like, why do you know so much about football? And the next thing she's nearly his mentor as the years go by. But yeah, I just think in life too, and I think even the older I'm getting, like the more you have to be aware of where you come from as well, and, you know, sometimes do think back to the things that, you know, are like the morals and the things that you were brought up on, and bring them into your adult life, because I think sometimes when you leave at such a young age from your hometown, you get a bit skewed of what, like where you're from, what you're doing now. But I think the older you get, you start, those memories of your youth and your childhood come back a lot stronger and kind of stand to who you are as a person.
Yeah, I think they provide the backbone really for it, because that's where so many of the positive experiences come from, and how you were almost formed, and the lessons that you were learned. A lot of them come in childhood, and you don't even know about it. Another thing that for me was really important that I was able to take away from reading this was that there's an awful lot that I don't know anything about as well, and that I don't really think about because it's not my experience. And the disability element in this book I found to be brilliant, because I don't think about it too often. And, you know, that's a slight on me, because I don't live that life. I don't give it enough thought. But it was a really valuable education to actually read the stories about the different characters in this book that had to overcome an awful lot just to be able to be part of football. And I found that to be really educational and important.
Yeah, no, same as myself. And I think that's down to, like, again, ignorance, you know, when it's not directly affecting your life, or, you know, in your face, you don't think about it. And I even remember hearing a radio advertisement about a wheelchair user and dog poo on the street, and, you know, because like it's an inconvenience for us when it gets in our shoes, but for a wheelchair user, it's, you know, it's a whole different story. And I remember just thinking, like, that has never crossed my mind. And I know we can't think of everything, or, you know, you wouldn't be able to get anything done in the day, but no, the book definitely did. And, you know, the kind of pros and cons to different challenges of within disability of sport, but then also the benefits that sport can bring to people who have disabilities as well. You know, there's wheelchair football, there's wheelchair basketball, things like that. It's just incredible. And I know there's lovely videos around Twitter too of and, you know, the McLean family. I know that Aviva, they did a lot of the kind of sensory room and stuff, which is just excellent. I think a lot of stadiums and stuff have like kind of caught on to that too. And I know with visually impaired, hearing impaired, there's lots of, you know, there's improvement still to be made, but I think yeah, like it's just sport can offer things to all types of people as well, so it's just great.
Yeah, and it's for everybody, and I think that really comes across in the book. I loved it, like entertaining, educational, engaging, and a lot of fun as well. And just like you say, you want to meet Emma Hayes, there's so many characters that I want to meet and who've written chapters in this book now after reading it. So it's Football She Wrote, and it's an anthology of women's writing on the game. Please do check it out, it's brilliant. And Ciara, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.